Peace, family. Here we go again. I would like to give honors to you all. I would like to give praise to the Almighty Allah for making all this possible. So this is going to be part 2 of Mystery of America and Atlantis part 2. So I know everybody been hitting me up. Well, a few people been hitting me up asking me when the number 2 coming, when part 2 coming. Well, here it go. So we're about to get into it. So make sure you lock in. Shout out to all the subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And hope you enjoy the video. So we're going to start with a recap from part 1. We talked about the the statements made by Noble Drew Ali in the Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America in reference to the Cushites and Canaanites being in the Americas before the great earthquake that caused the Atlantic Ocean. From my estimation, this great earthquake happened about 12,000 years ago, in which large parts of the Atlantis island sank, but some of it remains. It is called today the Azores Islands. We also spoke about the knowledge of Atlantis being transmitted to the Europeans by Africans who preserved the ancient knowledge. We discussed another statement made by Noble Drew Ali, where he said the Moabites from the land of Moab received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Africa, and that they founded the Moroccan Empire and they built the kingdoms today, which are called Morocco, Algiers, Tunis, Tripoli, etc. Tripoli is Libya, by the way. I have come to the conclusion that these Moabites, Canaanites, Hittites, and Amorites, etc., who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking new homes were later called Phoenicians by later Greek writers. Trace and documented history using the term Moabite doesn't yield much fruit. When trying to find a Moabite migration from the Middle East into West Africa. But Noble Drew Ali gave a good hint when he mentioned the kingdoms they built, mainly for me, Tunis and Tripoli, which are known to be Phoenician settlements. This is how I came to my conclusion that the Moabites who settled northwest Africa and built kingdoms there are documented as Phoenicians by historians. We also mentioned that there is a tribe in northwest Africa called Moabites, who trace their ancestry back to the biblical Moabites. So these are people called the Moabites, which is a tribe in North Africa today. All right. So for this part, I want you to see a clip, and after you see the clip, well, in the clip you will hear them discuss how the Phoenicians got here and the inscriptions they left behind in America. So watch the clip, and I'll be waiting for you on the other side.
Opinions.
Well, how did the ancient Phoenicians get here?
They had ships, Dr. Hauser, better than those available to Columbus. Here is a carving of the hull of one of them that we found at Mount Hope, Rhode Island. We have one other carving from another part of North America. And then the fact that they made the voyages is sufficiently plain from the inscriptions that they left en route.
The inscriptions Professor Fell refers to are found in abundance at Mystery Hill, if one knows what to look for. Osborne Stone, who assists his cousin Robert in preserving the site, points one out to Dr. Holzer.
Apparently is a G.
It has come to be called the G Stone. Holzer reads much more than a G on the weathered rock.
To me, there's no question that this was written by people who spoke the ancient Phoenician language and used the Phoenician alphabet. The origin of it.
Okay, you've seen the clip. They called the place where the Phoenician inscriptions were found Mystery Hill. They also call it America's Stonehenge, so you can look it up. It's also a tourist attraction. It's located in New Hampshire. Alright, so that's for that. So we're going to move on. In the mid-1800s, the Mesha Stella called the Moabite Stone was discovered by Europeans, shown to them by natives who preserved it, and it was later sold to Europeans at the much difficulty. So what is this difficulty? Well, the natives, it was a lot of things dealing with politics and jurisdiction and who the stone belonged to, this and that. So the Europeans, so later on, the natives who had the stone, I think later they had to turn it over, but before it was turned over, they broke it up into 50 pieces and they spread it out amongst their people. So the Europeans had to buy each piece. So, but eventually they got all the pieces and they took it back to them to Europe and they examined it there. And today it's in a museum over there in Europe. So the stone was found in Jordan, which once used to be called Moab. This stone has Phoenician inscriptions, according to scientists, which shows us another Moabite Phoenician connection. As stated in the first video, the Phoenicians called themselves Canaanites, and Canaanite letters were created by Phoenicians. The Phoenician letters were created by Canaanites. Anyone who speaks Hebrew today would be able to communicate with the ancient Phoenicians. The Greek and English alphabet come from the Canaanite alphabet, in which the Phoenicians used. In ancient Greek literature, America is called the Chronaean continent. The term Chronaean comes from the Greek god Kronos. Kronos is Saturn in Rome. So let's crack the code. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and the Tropic of Capricorn is the southwestern hemisphere near South and Central America, which means the planet Saturn has great influence on the West, or America, and America. This knowledge is preserved in Greek mythology. Osiris in his role as judge of the dead, he is called the foremost of the Westerners. He is also called the Great Westerner. This is a great mystery that can be connected to the Western world. The West, in the aspect of Osiris, was considered the land of the dead, which can mean several things. Alright, the land of the dead, because it can apply to literal death, but it also could be compared to knowledge or consciousness. In the Moorish American doctrine, it is stated that all light comes from the east. This has a literal and esoteric meaning because light also means knowledge. Africans brought light from the east into the west, just as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Moors are inhabitants of the Maghreb, which is in northwest Africa. So now this time frame I'm stating as the Moors, this is the time period after they were called Phoenicians. More modern time, headed towards the Middle Ages, right? So the Moors are the inhabitants of the Maghreb, which is northwest Africa, and the countries associated with the Maghreb today are Algeria, Morocco, Tunis, Libya, and Mauritania. The same countries that Noble Drew Ali said the Moabites and Canaanites built their kingdoms. So the information about the Maghreb can be, you can Google it and find this information, and you can compare it to exactly the same kingdoms that Noble Drew Ali taught us in the 20s. He taught this in the 20s, that the Canaanites and Moabites and the Hittites and all these people came from Canaan, and they built these kingdoms in West Africa, and their names is Tunis, Libya, or Tripoli, Algiers, Morocco, etc. So Moors are descended from Phoenicians. This is a fact. Noble Drew Ali taught us that the shade of the Moors or Asiatics is olive. The Moors are olive skin, what some call copper tone. Now, if you go to the unabridged dictionary, Webster's unabridged dictionary, I think the 1828 edition, the definition they have for American in there is the various copper tone or copper colored natives on the American continent found by Europeans, right? So let's move on. On the Fitzpatrick scale, which is a skin typing test. So this is a test that scientists use called the Fitzpatrick scale for skin tone or skin typing, right? Olive skin is considered type 4 to type 6 because olives vary in different colors. So we're like olives. We range from different shades of brown, right? So type 4 is categorized as skin burns minimally, always tans well, moderate brown. Type 5, very rarely burns, tans very easily, dark brown. Type 6, never burns, never tans, deeply pigmented dark brown to darkest brown. So you notice that the test doesn't use the color black, because in science the darkest skin is not black like my shirt. You see the big difference between my shirt, my tassel, my beard, and my actual skin color. So scientifically we are not black. We're the darkest you can get is a deeply, as they say, deeply pigmented dark brown, right? It is believed the English term Moor is derived from the word Mori. So I know everybody like to go to the Greek term, but if you go to the etymology dictionary and you type in moros or whatever that Greek term that y'all use that y'all say mean black, go to the etymology dictionary and read it, and you'll see that it says late Greek. That's key, that it says late Greek. What about early Greek? Well, what did it originally mean? So it shows you that the Greek term that they use that means for more, that means black, is connotative, which is more modern. It's not the original meaning, right? So the word English term, because more is an English term, so the English term more comes from the word Mori, which itself is derived from the Phoenician word, that means Westerner. So Osiris is the great Westerner, or the foremost of the Westerners. You see how this keep coming up? The Moors are the Westerners. It's no secret as to why the Moors had knowledge of Atlantis and America during the Middle Ages, because previously our forefathers called Phoenicians had been there and documented it. And before them, the Cushites had been there, which is proven by archaeology and preserved in mythology. This is what Diodorus stated in reference to America. He said, over against Africa lies a very great island in the vast ocean, many days sail from Libya. Here we go, Libya again. Many days sail from Libya westward. So we know Libya is Tripoli. Libya is in Africa, northwest Africa. The soil, he described it as, the soil is very fruitful with stately buildings. He described it farther. You probably can find it. Just research Diodorus literature. Is Sicilian. He's Sicilian. His name is spelled Diodorus. He also stated the Phoenicians, he says, having built Gades, sailed along the Atlantic coast of Africa. He said a Phoenician ship voyaging down this coast. Now this is stuff that he learned from Africans, right? He said a Phoenician ship voyaging down this coast was on a sudden driven by a furious storm far into the main ocean, and after they had lain under this tempest many days, they at length arrived at this island. The land which the Phoenicians reached was most likely Central America. So the Olmec stones that were found there were most likely, if they may have well been Phoenicians, the Olmec stones, or we might want to call them Cushites. But the Phoenicians sprang forth from the Cushite stock, right? So that's going to conclude our video for today. I'm going to add a part 3 and go more into the religious and the culture of ancient America and how it compares to the Phoenician culture, and how the Egyptian traders were back and forth from the Americas to Africa, back and forth trading. It was we don't know the half of the ancient world. It's not really told. It's not really told in schools, but it's documented, and thank Allah that things are left, literature is left where we can still trace these things. So with that, I'll say peace, subscribe, share, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Peace.